you first got into this coaching and like teaching about emotionally intelligent parenting.
You know what? It is not a really interesting story. So before I moved into emotional intelligence, I was a pediatric speech pathologist.
Oh,
And
cool.
so I was used to working with kids and families, obviously on language and communication and things like that.
Hmm.
And I just discovered emotional intelligence online. Like I think I came across it because a friend, someone I knew was posting about it. And I was like, what is this? Ooh, like emotions? Weird. So I don't know. The stuff kept popping up and I was clicking on, you read articles and watch YouTube videos and I was just captured. I was fascinated because I wasn't raised with emotional intelligence and it seemed like this whole new buzzword and this new concept. So yeah, I loved it, and I realized pretty quickly I could weave it into my work, but also the families that I worked with, the parents were obviously struggling with their kids' big emotions because
Yeah.
kids are balls of emotion and what comes with that challenging behaviors, and they just had no idea how to manage those and how to get their kids to cooperate and not shove down their emotions and say, I don't care, just get in the car. So so I kind of started using it in my work and then thought, actually, I really love this. And to be honest, I was burning out as a speech pathologist. So yeah, I made the transition and started working with families and parents in particular. Moved away from working with kids, but working with the parents because I found that was a lot more powerful and empowering.
It's so interesting. That's me too. I was an elementary school teacher, but before that, I was in the entertainment industry in Los Angeles. So I've had a varied career. But elementary school teacher, I stayed home with my son, and I founded what is now No Guilt Mom. And then I was making courses for kids, but that I realized when we were talking with parents that there could be a bigger impact if parents knew the same skills that I knew and used them with their kids. And it's just gone from there. And it's so like, I didn't think working with parents would be this delightful. As a teacher, like we were kind of taught to be scared of the parents. Honestly, we were. But working with parents has been the most amazing thing because you see like the relationships with kids just grow from there.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. Now you said like you weren't raised that way. Like I was raised in like the grounding household and like my parents would get mad and everything. Like what was your childhood like?
So my experience was definitely that traditional style of parenting. So kids are generally, loved, but kind of seen and not heard. Like, don't talk back, don't challenge the parent, don't ask silly questions, don't be rude, don't be angry, don't be upset. You shouldn't be upset about this. It's not a big deal. It was an accident. You're fine. So a lot of that kind of, I want to just say, invalidating of emotions and how I felt and my experience.
Did you get the whole I'll give you something to cry about? That's like the classic.
Something to cry about.
Yeah. I like the Coke classic of 80s, 70s parenting. You want to cry? I'll give you something to cry about.
Yeah. Yes, and like suck it up, buttercup. And I mean, I didn't hear that one specifically, but my parents are from the UK, so they came out here in the 80s and had us, me and my brother and sister. So they were very much everything is swept under the rug. We don't really talk about it. Everything is fine. The next day we were back to normal. So I was learning that, oh, okay, well, I shouldn't feel like that. That was bad. That was wrong. Put it away and I need to be fine and okay and happy and polite and yada, yada. So I actually learned how to be a very good girl and I was a people pleaser. I stuffed it down. I was so good at stuffing and actually maybe not a fun fact. I was going to say fun fact. I was so good at shoving it down that as I got into my younger teens, being an older kid, younger teens, and all throughout my teenage years and into my 20s, I started fainting for quote unquote no reason when I was really anxious or nervous.
Oh,
and so I went to doctors and, specialists and things like that. And they were like, you are fit, you are healthy. Like I ate really well. I played a lot of basketball, the story goes on. And I realized in the end, really myself, when I learned about emotional intelligence, that I thought, oh my God, it's when I feel this certain level of heightened emotion that my body and my nervous system could not deal with that. It was too scary, too much, had no coping strategies for when I was nervous or anxious or worried or whatever. And so my body took me out of the situation. Like that's what fainting is. So in animals, it looks like playing dead. When there's a predator. In humans, it looks like fainting or dissociating. So anyway, my huge, like, I was the most emotionally unintelligent person, that I just had no idea about how to handle emotions. And when they got too much, I just avoided or, shoved it down.
Yeah.
And then I had kids. And so that was like,
Okay, I'm curious, how did this fainting resolve itself?
Yeah, talk about body budget, like right there, man.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my God. So I love, somewhere behind me will be a couple of Mona Della Hooks books. I love
we love her. Love Mona.
So I came to realize that it was a few things. Obviously, my emotional awareness, 0. My ability to cope with strong emotions, 0. So one of the chapters in my book is like the emotionally unintelligent girl, because that was me. But also I realized that my confidence and my self-esteem and everything was really, really low. And so working, to be honest, just developing my own emotional intelligence was really the thing that now has, like, a couple of months ago, I flew down to Melbourne. So I'm in Sydney. I flew down to Melbourne on my own with I didn't go with my husband. On my own, I worked out my Ubers. I got to the conference hall. I spoke at a conference in front of just over 1,000 people with a mic and mic'd up and with my slides up on the screen, and not a shred of anxiety or worry or fear. Like, I had no qualms about, like, I used to think, what if I faint? What if I go up there and what if I talk and then I let everyone down and I can't even get up there? Had none of that. Like, honestly, about 2 to 5 years, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, I would not have even accepted. I wouldn't have even put myself out there. Now I do speak in front of a lot of people and it's fine.
Well, I am so curious on how you started becoming a more emotionally intelligent person, and we're going to get into that right after this. So we were talking about how you developed your own emotional intelligence. That was how the fainting stopped. So what were the steps you went through to do that?
So I needed to first not be so afraid of emotions and think that they're bad and wrong and awkward and a sign of weakness. Like, if we actually start there, then I got to learn, okay, well, maybe they're okay and maybe I can just let myself feel them. And when I felt emotions coming up, if I was frustrated at my husband, if I was angry with my kids, if I was really upset or disappointed about something that had happened, I actually started to let myself, like, sit in that for a little bit rather than scroll on my phone or
all of the stuff to take away the attention, for sure.
Yeah. So I started to really learn to accept and even honor those emotions, because I thought, well, if they're going to come, they're going to happen, because if we have emotions, that's as much a part of being human as having a brain or an elbow. Like, I better get used to them. So I did that, and I started to learn, obviously, the power behind emotions, and that they are telling us a message, and that I could kind of leverage them. I could listen to them and I could think, oh, I should have said no to that. And I just said, yeah, of course I'll do it. I'll bake 12 cookies for the sale. I don't have time for this. So I really have had to work on my boundaries, which I sucked at, for so long, because I was a people pleaser.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, we were all people pleasers, both me and Brie, total people pleasers. Absolutely. And I love how you say, like, emotions were telling you something, because I think that's something that I learned very recently. Like, I was today years old kind of recently when I learned that like, anger could be telling you something, because anger was something that was seen as wrong as a girl. Like, you weren't supposed to be angry.
We're not supposed to get angry. We don't look pretty when we're angry.
Or you get the other stereotype where you're called, like, a bitch because you're angry, when really it's a very valid emotion. I mean, I used to work in an agency in Hollywood, and all of the male agents would, like, curse and scream all the time. They were never called that. They were seen as tough and, like, powerful, and women who have that sort of anger don't. So I love how you said you had to realize the emotions were telling you something.
Yeah.
Once you realized they were telling you something and you could use them, like, how did you use them? You said boundaries already, but was there a different way you used them?
Yeah. So I realized that there were a lot of things that were in my control that I just wasn't doing, like setting boundaries, like speaking up. I had to find my voice. I'm still finding my voice. Like I can talk in front of a lot of people, but oh my gosh, if I have to talk to my husband about a really difficult, tricky issue, I'm like, I'd rather not.
Something where you're like, I'm really putting myself out on the line, and if you say no, I'll be a little crushed. So I'm kind of nervous about saying it.
Yeah. I had to get really good at being vulnerable, especially to him. Like I can be super emotionally intelligent with my kids. Put me in front of my husband and we've known each other since we were 16 and I'm 37 now. So like it's been a while. Yeah. And I've had to learn how to find my voice. It sounds so silly. Like he's a lovely guy, but like I didn't want to disappoint him. Yeah. I could not cope with the emotional reaction of if we had a disagreement or an argument, or if I wanted to say, I don't agree with that. Or, that was just like, as you said, crushing. And so I had to learn how to find my feet and to find my self-worth and to have boundaries, to speak up when I disagreed or didn't like something or wanted to do something different. So lots of things that I was like, I have to put my big girl pants on right now.
It's hard. I mean, like I can say I felt the same way talking to my husband, and like I've been with him for, over 20 years now. We got together when we were 19 and I'm like now 42. And you kind of stop counting after
all the
40.
numbers.
But like, I learned throughout the years, and I wonder if you noticed this too about your husband. Like my husband does not put the same emphasis on those conversations, like emotional emphasis, that I do. Whereas I'll be really worked up and think it's like such a big deal. For instance, tonight, I booked a yoga class tonight. And in the past, I would have been like, oh my gosh, like I need to tell him that I booked this class. I need to talk to him first about booking the class. I need to make sure like he's okay that I go because like he's going to be home with the kids, like all of these things. And I learned that it's like no big deal. So tonight when I booked the class, I just texted him. I'm like, booked a yoga class tonight, 7:15. And he's like, thumbs up. I'm like, cool, that's so good. So like, do you see the same thing with your husband? Like, is one of you more emotionally attuned and one is not?
Okay, so I have a lot to say about this, but I'm going to summarize it. Initially, no, we were not on the same page at all. Like I said, my family's from the UK, so very polite and proper and conservative. His family is Portuguese.
Okay.
They were like, we just lay it all out, man. Yeah. We lay it all out.
Like, it was intense. And so, like, I remember when we were, would have been, late teens kind of thing, having one of our big arguments about, I don't know, who knows what. And he was like, I'm going to walk home. I think we didn't even have our license then. I don't know. And I was like, I could not handle the sense that he was upset with me, angry with me, not happy, like things were bad. I would have just wanted the ground to swallow me up, basically. So we were very different. As I said, now I've learned to find my voice and have boundaries and speak up and things like that. But it took me this is the thing I tell a lot of parents, do not like shove this in front of your partners or husbands or, face. Don't say, we need to be parenting like this. You need to be more emotionally intelligent. You shouldn't have yelled at the kids. That was too harsh. You're going to scar them. We cannot do that, because what that does is like push them further away. And like, I'm going to say, I have so been there. I remember a conversation years ago where my husband said something like, Steph, do you even need me here? Because you've got this, like, sounds like you've got this. And I was like, oh crap. And I had to realize like, there's my way. There's a beautiful quote. There's my way and there's your way. But as for the one way or the right way, it does not exist. And I was trying to get him to do it my way. And so now I've learned, and this is what I talk about a lot, is that we have to honor that our partner was not raised by the same parents we were, was not raised in the same household, in the same culture, in the same, everything. So of course they're going to react or respond differently to us. Of course they're going to be on a different page. They've had millions of little micro moments of learnings that have created their beliefs about how we deal with emotions, what they are, if they're good or bad, if we talk about them or not. So it's been a journey, but he's actually like, I've been doing this since 2019, like full time, and really, like, I can say we're virtually on the same page with our goals, our understanding, our ideas.
That's great.
But sometimes we go about it in a different way, and I do go, ooh, I wouldn't have said it like that way. But I'm like, hands off. Like, I can talk to you about it later if I really want to, but otherwise, I've got to let you parent. Like you're half of us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's a big thing right there. Like if it's really bugging you 2 hours later, then you can bring it up. But a lot of times, like, or do either of you guys like have that? Like I find, and Joanne already knows this, I'm a pretty like, bam, big emotion. So like I'll get really emotional about it like in the moment, but then an hour or two later I'll be like, what did we talk about? Like
so that's like my husband, Bree. It's like Josh. He'll be like, he once told me something that I said that really hurt his feelings. And I was crushed when he told me about it. I can't even remember what it was now. But I remember just feeling crushed. I was like at tears. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I did not mean it that way. And I brought it up maybe a month later, and I'm like, I'm really thankful that you like told me that because I need to know that for the future. And he's like, I don't even remember that conversation.
Like, you've been like getting a stomach ache for a month about it. Like it's so
funny. It's so funny. But I love how like you stated like we both have different ways, and we both parent like in partnerships you parent differently, and that's totally okay. The hard thing is, and I don't know if you've run into this yet, Stephanie, with your kids, but when kids get older and they start telling you like, I mean, I'm the more emotionally intelligent parent in our partnership, and so I'm very aware of my kids' feelings and like what they need, and my husband sometimes is not, and my kids will come to me and be like, Dad said this to me, or Dad did this to me. And like, it's so hard to walk that line. I mean, I'll tell you what I tell them, and I want to hear what you tell your kids, Stephanie. And we're going to do that right after this. Okay. Before the break, we were talking about what to say to kids when they approach you about your parenting style being different than your partner's. And it's like critical. It's like they're being critical of it. No. Yeah. Yeah. Like you've seen it, right, Bree? Especially
it puts
being
you
co-parenting.
In that spot where you're like, oh yeah, right. So it was funny. I was going to interject the whole like how long you guys have known your partners. My husband and I have been married for 3 years now, so he's my second husband. We've known each other longer than that, but and it gets complicated. But the point is that there's plenty of times where you're stuck in the middle, going like, oh crap. I feel like if I don't, how do I say this? If I'm not on my kids' side, then they feel like I'm leaving them out and vulnerable. But then if I go over to my husband and I'm critical about how he handled it, then I'm not honoring his way of doing it. Mm-hmm. And then I'm also the naggy person that's coming in saying like, you shouldn't have done it that way. Like, and I'll run through all those scenarios. It's like that scene from The Matrix with all the wind, with all the screens of all the possible things that could happen. I go through all of it.
Yeah.
In like 5 seconds. Yeah. And I decide that I'm screwed no matter which way I go, so then I faint. No.
I
see what you did there.
What do you do, Stephanie, in that situation?
It is hard. And the thing that I try to remember is to be impartial. And to honor my kids' emotions and their experience. So their perception, this is something I say a lot, their perception, someone else's emotions or experience is just as true for them as mine are for me. Yeah. So I cannot argue with my kids saying, Dad was mean, he said I can't play on the computer, like I have to honor that that's real for them. So I validate that and I empathize with that. I'm like, you know what, that must be so hard to feel like you can't and that Dad's being really mean. Like I can do that and yet remain impartial and not step over that line and be like, you know what, he's been really mean. I'm going to go talk to him because that's out of line. Dad should not have done that.
Right. Yeah.
And then I say, but you know what? I wonder if Dad made that comment because, we have noticed that you were on it for a few hours today, or, so I'm trying to, as you said, Brie, like you're like walking that tightrope line.
Right, it is walking that
to tightrope. Not just, because sometimes you'll be like, yeah, that was really mean. Oh my God. Like,
right in your head, you're just like,
like somebody's on his period. No.
It's that time of the month.
It's that time of the month for Dad.
Go. So yes, it is difficult. And I think, did you say, Brie, like, either way, we're kind of screwed. Like there's an element of, you know what? We're not going to be able to raise our kids perfectly, emotionally intelligently. We're not going to lose our, flip our lid. We're not going to not flip our lid ever. We're humans and we're going to be, imperfect. Yeah. raise our voice, we're going to get triggered and things like that. And I actually think that's, as long as we're not doing that 24/7 and scarring our kids, we can show and model to our kids, you know what? I am not perfect, and I, flip my lid and I lose my cool, and I said something yesterday at lunch and I didn't want to, let's redo that. I'm sorry, honey. Like, we can show them, yeah, you're going to stuff up. No, you don't have to beat yourselves up. And it's never too late to repair and do like a redo and say, you know what, like, can we do that again? I didn't mean to yell. So I think that takes the pressure off kids too, so that when they mess up or they blow up or erupt, then they're not going to beat themselves up later.
Exactly. I push Dad into the fire, like in a good way, in a really good way, because it's worked. So I do what you do, Stephanie.
It works in yours.
I empathize. Yeah. I say everything, and I'm like, have you talked to Dad about this, that you're feeling this way? And a lot of times they have not. They're scared to bring it up and everything. And I'm like, okay, well, that's okay. If you're not comfortable with it, that's okay. And then I go talk to my husband, but I don't criticize him in any way. I'm just like, hey, like, so-and-so's upset here. You may just want to go check in and see what's going on. And then they get their relationship and they get to repair that based on, he sometimes needs to be cued that people are upset. He's very stoic. It's like the engineer mindset. And so I found that helps in our house.
Awesome. Yeah. I like that. I think it's good to model that to the kids. It's good to give the kids the kind of plant those seeds. Have you talked to Dad, or do you want to say this, or what would you say? Or, do you want me to come with you? Sometimes I've gone with my kids because they are upset. Dad's been mean, and I go and talk to them and I say, come on, I'll come with you. Yeah. Like, to expect a 5 or 10-year-old, like a very physically smaller person, mentally, like cognitively, they're not as developed. Like, there's all these things against the kids. I'm like, yes, I will come with you until you're at the point where you're like, okay, we've done it that many times, and most of the time Dad listens and it goes okay. I can do it on my own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a hard thing to wrap your brain around, though, because they're so comfortable telling you everything that you've done wrong to hurt them and upset them, everything, and they will not tell their dad what they.
Well, they're just like, it's the thing about how kids have that emotionally safe person in their life. Normally, it's a parent. And normally it's edible, but that's the one that we see the whole gamut of emotions with, because they're like, dude, I can completely melt down and act like a fool, and this person, aka mom, a lot of the times will still love me, will still be there, will not like say negative things, but it does take a toll on us because of that, we hear it all. We hear it all. Like I went through like a really rough, like we were talking about how we have teens, and I went through like a really tough phase with my daughter, probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago, where I just felt like every day she was pushing that boundary of, you said you'd love me no matter what. You said you'd love me no matter what. So we're just going to push and say mean things and do mean things and see if you're still going to be here when I'm done. And
it's exhausting.
Wow.
It is exhausting.
It takes it. I think, you know what? When we feel like, whoa, like this is a lot for us to handle. Number one, Kristen Neff's work around self-compassion is incredible.
We've had her on the podcast. Yes, we have. She was amazing.
Agree. Yeah, she is great. Like fierce. Was it like Fiercely? Love Yourself Fiercely, or
yeah. Now I can't remember the name of the book. Fierce Self-Compassion, and it was a follow-up to Self-Compassion. Yeah. It's actually built into our program, into Balance, about the acknowledge you're in pain and then have the common humanity and then give yourself that comfort.
But Kristen Neff, that compassion work, it's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that one piece you said, Joanne, the common humanity, that's what gets me through. Like conversations like this, us three have had the same kind of experiences, and we have different kids, different ages. We're on different sides of the world.
Yeah.
And oh my God, you guys get this too. You go through it too. It's not just me. Like that sense is just like, oh, I'm not doing it all wrong.
It's so nice.
We're all getting it. And like those emotions, they wear you down too. Like sometimes I'll be like, you know what? I haven't had to do much physical stuff today, but all the emotions have been totally pushed upon me that you just feel at the end of the day, you're like, and I'm done and I need to retreat, else I'm going to blow up.
You know why? Because emotions, if we think about even just the word emotions, they're energy in motion, like emotions, right? So it can drain your energy. When we get those spikes of emotion, when we get heightened, we get emotionally hijacked, so to speak, angry, frustrated, or a grief, or disappointment. What happens usually is we have a flood. Like every cell in our body is flooded with like cortisol, adrenaline. Like we have this full physiological reaction. So yeah, we could have done like nothing physical, and yet we've had this big thing happen, like grandma's in hospital, or I've just been fired, or my husband has said we need to talk, and like phrase. those things. Like they're emotionally draining. So this is why when we dial up our emotional intelligence and we honor our emotions and we actually take steps to help ourselves regulate rather than just pushing on, well, I'll get to that later. Okay, I'm going to scroll on my phone. Like that's just like kind of, trying to like fix the surface level. Like, it's not going, okay, I think I need to clear the next hour or my afternoon because I need to deal with this. Like emotionally, I don't have the brain space. If I just push through, I'm going to blow up at the next person that calls me, so it's being, I see emotional intelligence as being smart with your emotions when a lot of us are not. And we were not raised that way. No. So it takes learning.
It does take learning, and it takes a lot of self-compassion throughout the whole process, because learning to regulate your emotions is a very complex thing with a lot of different like roots and sources and things that you dig up along the way about why you act the way you do. It's intense.
Yes. Yeah. It's a lot of psychology behind it, which I kind of love.
I love
I'm a bit nerdy like that.
I am nerdy as well. I'm right there with you. Stephanie, what are you looking forward to right now?
Oh, you know what? This week has been a really busy week, so I'm looking forward to the weekend where I have a friend's birthday celebration. So that's a small thing, but I think I'm looking forward to, I've got a few things coming up where I'm getting to speak about this exact stuff face to face. Like I do a lot of stuff online, but face to face, speaking to people about this. And I just think, oh my God, like you never quite know whose lives you're going to change with a conversation. Like even this one, someone might hear it and go, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Thank God. And so that's really exciting.
That is exciting. Well, it's been wonderful talking with you and chatting with you. And this has just been simply delightful. And thank you so much for coming on.